Hi guys, this is Xavier. Today is Sunday, June 19th, and I'm about to reveal information which is of such extreme national significance that I might not live to see my birthday in less than 3 weeks' time. I'm going to show the deep interconnection between the most bloodthirsty criminals in Jamaica and a clique of persons within the Jamaican judiciary, and show how both have been working together so efficiently to keep criminals on the street. First of all, what I'm referring to in this specific case is the trial that has been going on with the 31 defendants in the Supreme Court. Now, since the release of about 5 of those defendants a few days ago, people are saying that the police has not done their job and have not presented enough evidence to convince a legal tribunal to convict these men. But that is not true. That is not true. The police took 2.5 years of painstaking investigation. They tapped phones. They recorded many conversations, hundreds of hours of conversation. They got confirmation of these recordings by the data providers, which showed they had not been tampered with. Cell towers placed many defendants at the crime scenes. The police retrieved weapons that contained the fingerprints of several gunmen. There were photographs of the defendants, their data, face, their vital information were taken, including fingerprints. There were even ball-by-ball commentary on how each defendant, each event went down when they were committing their acts. And several people were placed at these locations at the time. What was on display also, there was the full chain of command within the gang. The whole command structure of the gang was presented. Everything within the structure was presented to see the whole hierarchy from the foot soldier to the top lieutenant and the overall leader. That was shown. You know, they could even show the chain of command of the weapons that they retrieved to see who had it and who had it next and who. They went to all that length. Yes? But last but not least, former gang members, no less 3 former gang members, including 2 who were in the top hierarchy of the gang, were working with the police in real time, gathering data for 2.5 years. And all this information were gathered and totally recorded and kept and tabulated and put in specific chronological order and everything. And everything was presented before the courts. So, what went wrong? The police, let me say this plain, the police are not able to speak on it because as professionals and because of the job they do, they will not be able to come out and speak on it. So I am going to speak for the Jamaica Constabulary. The Jamaica Constabulary did their job. In fact, they didn't just do their job. They did something which was cutting edge. They did something that come out of a James Bond movie. They did things that only the CIA and the FBI and the MI6 and the KGB were capable of doing. I didn't know that the Jamaica Constabulary were capable of that. These men went, as police officers, went into the belly of the beast, into the belly, and gathered evidence, communicated with the criminals, kept diaries, kept records, daily records, and all of this was presented before the courts coherently. There was nothing that is humanly possible that the police had not done. The police did everything. So we have to ask the questions, what went wrong? Let me tell you what went wrong. There is a clique. There is a clique within the Jamaican judiciary who are working with the criminals. Yes. And this clique, there is nothing you're going to present before the courts that this clique will not throw out. They just throw it out arbitrarily. Because what seemed to have happened is that when the anti-gang legislation was being tabled in Parliament, there doesn't seem to have been any criteria as to what evidence would constitute being a gang member. And basically, the onus is on the prosecution to prove that they were gang members. And lacking any form of criteria, what the court has done is simply throw out every evidence. At least, let me tell you, I'm not on the inside, I'm on the outside, but to the best of my knowledge, at least 80% of the evidence that was presented had to have been thrown out. Or these men nobody could have walked. Nobody could have walked. But what I'm going to show you, let me get into this a bit deeper. And I'm going to mention this clique some more. And I'm going to refer to this clique as brain. I'm going to refer to this clique of corrupt persons within the judicial system as brain. Now, let me tell you something. Brain is using a thing we call psyches. You see? And let me tell you about psyches. Psyches is pronounced P-S-Y-C-H-E-S. We say psyches. Now, how do we use the word psyches in Jamaica? In Jamaica, when we're using the word psyches, we say, when a man trying to bamboozle you, can you, samfire you, and him is a big general, we say he might use psyches pan you, he might use psyches pan you. So let me tell you something. These members of this clique is using psyches to release all of these people. Psyches them I use. And because of psyches, all these, virtually all 31 members who are on trial are eventually going to be released. They may hold back maybe 3 or 4 token ones. And these token ones that they hold back will be just on some little minor issue where they get a 3 or 4 years. So I can tell you that now, because the people within this clique, I'll refer to as brain, because they're using psyches to throw out every evidence, it makes the lawyers, the defense lawyers, have very little work to do. Once the system, brain, throws out the evidence, this corrupt clique throws out the evidence, every evidence that the police took 3 years, risk their very lives. Because these policemen went undercover and went right to the belly of the beast, pretending to be family members. They could have been shot and killed and their head put on posts. And they went to that length and got the information. They got everything. And let me put it in perspective, We must remember that, let's take Al Capone in the United States. What convicted Al Capone? One book. One accounts book, one accounts ledger, and the person who wrote up the ledger. That's all it took to send the biggest criminal in the 1930s to prison. Now, let's go to the 1980s. We might remember John Gotti. John Gotti, one of the biggest crime lords in New York. What caused him to be convicted? One man, one single one of his lieutenants who decided to turn against him. One. And based on just that alone, he was convicted. As a matter of fact, in the United States, once one of the top lieutenants or anybody within a certain criminal organization comes up and goes on the stand, you are doomed. Because whatever the person who was in your group says, as far as they're concerned, as far as the US government is concerned, you come from river bottom and say shark down there because you come from among them. And that is how the British legal system goes. That's how the Canadian legal system goes. That's how German legal system is. As a matter of fact, that's how every decent country legal system goes. But this banana republic we have here, where the gunmen, the most bloodthirsty criminals, have hijacked members of this clique of corrupt judiciary, corrupt members of the Jamaican judiciary, it is virtually impossible that any of these men will be connected, will be convicted. Because notice, here is one point to take into consideration. Remember that none of these 31 persons on trial had hired any top lawyer. Why should they hire a top lawyer? It doesn't make no sense. Once you have members of the clique in your pocket, once members of the clique are in your pocket, you don't need a top lawyer. You need any little cheap man off the street can come and sit down there. And once the judge, once members of the clique throws out the painstakingly gathered evidence, once that evidence is thrown out, all the lawyer has to do is stand up and say, I'm making a no-case submission, you haven't got any evidence, so you've got to release the accused. And that's all is going to happen because members of this clique are using psychs to hoodwink the prosecution, to stultify the prosecution's case and throw out every evidence, causing no case submissions to be made for every single convict, or sorry, for every single accused. Now, why is this happening, or how it happens? Let me tell you, there's a loophole. There's a loophole. You see, when the legislation was being made, there was no way anybody thought of what are the criteria will be used to judge whether a man is a member of a gang. How are you going to become a member of a gang? Nobody knows. In fact, known criminal was shown to have worked with the gang, interacted with the gang in criminal activities. And members of this clique use psychs to tell the proceedings that, look, the man might interact with the gang and he might do all kinds of things with the gang, but that don't prove him as a gang member. He might be just what do you call it though? Just a soldier of fortune. He might be just stay with them for a little one act. In other words, he was a mercenary. So if man can be shown to be a total criminal, show it to be, he have a long criminal history, and that he interacts with the gang and does things with the gang, and you said that still doesn't prove he's a gang member, and this clique is saying, this clique of corrupt members of the judicial system is saying that that is not proof he's a gang member. He might be just a mercenary acting with the gang, but that don't prove he's a gang member. How is that possible? Now you can see that nothing that the prosecution can present will ever be sufficient to convict any of these people. Remember also, there has been some intimidation. The police have been intimidated. Imagine, can you believe in a civilized country with a civilized, uncorrupt judicial system where a prosecution bring a case with a member of a certain group who knows everything about that group and comes to testify for it. And can you believe that members of the corrupt clique, of this judicial clique, is going to look at the police and say, why did you not arrest the man who come to give testimony against those men? This is a witness for the prosecution and you want him to be arrested? Now, if that is intimidation, now why are you sending the case in that direction? Why would anybody, members of that, any members of a uncorrupt judiciary, be sending that kind of message? How can they be sending that kind of message? Now, this goes to show that something is wrong with our judiciary. And a lot of them are on the payroll of the bloodthirsty gang members. Now, I go further. Now, how can we determine a gang member if it's not a group of men who act together for a common cause? And obviously, even if you're not a criminal and you're not a gang member, but you act with them for a common cause of criminality, then obviously you are a gang member. Because so far, none of these 31 persons have been proven to be gang members so far. Not one. And the evidence that can prove it are not sufficient, because there will never be sufficient evidence to prove it. Because here is what. I think what this man is looking for is maybe an ID. Each of gang members is supposed to carry an ID, which with his name, his position, his rank, and so on, to show that he's a gang member. Maybe contain his TRN and his NIS number and some other finer details. And I guess that is what the court is looking for. And failure to present those identification cards, they are not going to think that any of these men are members of a gang. But hold on. Why would gang members walk around with IDs giving their affiliation to a gang? As a matter of fact, it gets so weird, because in all honesty, if these IDs were to be presented, if, say, well, for example, these IDs were to be presented showing each gang, each person's members' affiliation to a gang, guess what would happen? The courts itself, the members of this clique, would have still thrown it out and said, listen, we don't have no record of this. We don't know if this is a forgery, and it could be a forgery, and therefore it should go. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever, even if it's their DNA on it, that this clique will not throw out. Because the sort of psychs they're using, believe me, man, this clique is really working. Now, what is going to be the after effects of this? What's going to be the after effects? One, we are going to have a very demoralized police force, because after the amount of risk that these policemen took to bring these criminals, this bloodthirsty group of criminals, to justice, and the amount of effort that they put into it, risk their very lives. Can you believe that? Do you think that these men will ever use this cutting edge technology ever again? Do you think they will do such painstaking work again? Because they know that it makes no sense. The judge or members of the corrupt, members of the judiciary, members of this clique, you're just going to use psychs to throw it out. They're just going to throw it out. So what we have now is a very demoralized police force. You know? And that is a great setback. Because the full rollout of this type of sophisticated, intelligence-driven policing will grind to a halt. Because when you demoralize a hard-working police force like this, what do you expect? They'll go out and do it again. They have no incentive to go out and ever even try to do their work so thoroughly ever again. And another point, the third point is the setback. The third setback is which members of a gang, which members of any gang will ever come forward again and ever come out and work with the police? They know they are wasting their time because the men simply just going to come out on the road and end up dirting them, because members of the clique is going to use psychs to throw out any evidence, and the members of this clique is going to also intimidate the witness, tell them that they are the ones who should be on trial, and try to make the accused persons look good. So with one fell swoop, this group, this clique, they have now killed any semblance of justice and fair play we'll ever have in this country, because no member, no fish is going to come out from the riverbank again, river bottom again, and say, this is what happened down there. It will never happen again. So what we have seen is one of the ultimate setbacks for justice in this country, an ultimate setback for fair play and for criminality. And also, this clique has single-handedly killed the ultimate intelligence-driven operational strategies ever attempted in this country. Yes. Now, this is not the first it has happened. It has happened before. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you of a case. It happened in Western Jamaica with the Kings Valley gang from Westmoreland. 5 of these men, I think it was 6 of them, were taken into custody, and a member of the gang came up and testified that he's a gang member, and he went on robberies and all kind of thing with them, shootings and everything. And this gang member, he was put out to grass. The men were released because all the evidence that this former Kings Valley gang member put out against the gang was thrown out. And the men walked. They were arrested in 2018, 6 members, and they didn't come to trial until 2020. So they were in prison for 2 years. In prison for 2 years, being fed and being looked after by the state with taxpayers' money. Then this man risked his life, wanting to leave the gang, risk his life, come up. All of his testimony was thrown out by members of this clique of using psychs, specifically using psychs in this case to throw out all these men. And hold on now, Copeland Sankey, who was a member of these 6, he was shot. He was released and claimed how him innocent. His details was in the Gleaner, and he's saying how he was just a normal pig farmer and he lost his livelihood. And then what happened? He went and kicked off a man door just a week ago and didn't find the man, and driving back through, he was shot up and was killed and taken to Cornwall Regional Hospital, and several bullets and guns was found in his car. This innocent man that the clique released. But I will go further. There is a man among the same Kings Valley gang who released certain information. I don't know if it is a fact, but based on what I've simply seen so far, it is very likely there is a man within the gang who was a gang leader, right? And what the gang leader said is that it's 500,000 per release. So once you are going on trial for being member of a gang, once you have $500,000, you are not going to prison. Everything that is put up before the clique is going to be thrown out. So that is the reason why you see none of these gang members get a good lawyer. they know they don't need a good lawyer. Because if you don't have if all the evidence is going to be thrown out by the clique using Sykes, why get a lawyer? You don't need a good lawyer. You don't only want a lawyer to do one thing. Stand up and say, since you haven't got the evidence, I'm making a no-case submission. And once they make that no-case submission, you walk. You walk. You don't need a top lawyer for that. Just have your $500,000 ready. You understand me? So that is what is going on. And them can come kill me for saying this, but let me tell you something. A shaking up need to be done. I think that Seat Talk and Mocha need to start investigating members of these clique, one of them who are use Sykes to let these men out to continue killing people. Sykes should no longer be the reason why these gunmen are released to continue to wreak havoc. Because if we don't get to these people, members of this corrupt clique within the judiciary, this country is doomed. Because no bloodthirsty criminal will ever get convicted in our courts. And if he does get convicted, he's only get 2 or 3 years for whatever as a token, while several get to go free. So please, finally, I'm saying this, stop blaming the police. It's not the police fault. Not even the Father in heaven could come down and do anything better than what these hard-working policemen has done, and big them up. Another thing, I need to say this too. Members, I have no reason to think that members of the defense team, the legal defense team, are involved in this. I think it's straight. I think these gangs are more than likely dealing straight or through a go-between with members of the clique who is using Sykes. You understand me? So let me make that clear. I also do not think, and let me say this also, members of the prosecution are the dear sweet Paula Llewellyn. I don't think she has anything to do with this. That's a very decent woman, and I'll stand by that lady. I have every reason to think that she's one of the most decent human beings on the face of this earth. So I don't think any member of the prosecution is involved in this. It's just that the prosecution and the police, they cannot come out and speak for themselves because of the sort of parameters which guides their jobs. They can't come out and say it. So it is up to we, the public, to see what's going on, voice it, and hopefully somebody in high places can, in government, can put a stop to this or change the legislation to ensure that, like in civilized country, once you associate with a gang, you're a gang member. That's it. We only want you to talk up to them and sit on pancana with them. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, anything above that, as far as I'm concerned, you should be regarded as a gang member. The bar should be so low. You can't set a high bar and an impossible bar like what is set now. Okay? So I don't know if I will live beyond to even see my birthday, as I said, but I look forward to it if it happens. But in this case, somebody have to stand up. And I am Xavier, and I'm taking one for the team. So if they come for me, just look me in the face and just take me out. Because Martin Luther King once said, a man who has not found anything worth dying for isn't fit to live. And I have found something worth dying for. My country. The welfare and the happiness of the people within my country, and that's worth dying for. And I await their execution. But this had to be said. Thank you. This is Xavier. And if I never get to come back on a live again, to post another video, yeah, I love you guys. I did this for country, taking one for the team. I'm like that fireman who stand on Hagley Park Road on his own and took one for his team. Thank you very much. Over and out.